Angela Martinez felt a familiar thrill as she unlocked her front door after another long day at the FBI's cyber division.
Oh.
She was proud of the work she did. Every morning she woke up before dawn, laced her running shoes, and jogged through the quiet neighborhood in Springfield where she grew up. She believed that discipline in her personal life built strength in her professional one. After her run, she made a quick breakfast and kissed her cat Shadow before heading off to the sleek federal building downtown. Angela's friends joked that she was part detective, part tech genius, and part community hero, and they were not far from the truth. From the moment she joined the FBI, Angela stood out. She had a knack for seeing patterns where others saw only noise. A week earlier, she had cracked a ring of hackers who used supermarket self-checkout machines to steal credit card data. Team cheered when she found the hidden code buried deep in the system logs. The Bureau's director called her a rising star, and younger agents looked up to her as a role model. Still, Angela never let praise go to her head. She knew there was always another case waiting, another mystery to solve. Outside of work, Angela devoted her time to a youth coding camp in her hometown. Every Saturday, she taught middle school students how to build simple websites and write basic scripts. She loved watching their eyes light up when they saw how code could bring ideas to life. To her, teaching was part of her mission. She wanted to make sure the next generation had the skills and confidence to protect themselves online. Springfield's community center walls were lined with thank you notes and photos of smiling kids, holding certificates she had helped them earn. Meanwhile, 2 officers at the local police precinct had a very different reputation. Officer Jake Daniels and Officer Mark Keller had both been on the force for over 8 years. In that time, they had faced several internal complaints about their conduct, complaints they managed to brush aside. They were respected by some for their tough approach to low-level crime, but others whispered that they often let their personal biases guide their decisions. Daniels was quick to assume guilt. Keller was slow to back down from an argument. Neither had ever met Angela, but they shared a belief that the town belonged to certain people first. One warm summer evening, Angela was driving home after a late programming workshop at the community center. She had stayed late to help a young girl debug a stubborn error in her game. It was close to midnight when her car slowed on the side of a rarely used country road just beyond the edge of town. A sedan sat with its hazard lights flashing, smoke curling from under the hood. The driver, a middle-aged man in a suit, waved frantically as Angela pulled over behind him. Angela parked a safe distance away and switched on her own hazards. She approached with calm steps, her flashlight in hand. The man explained that his engine had overheated and that he had an important meeting in Springfield the next morning. Angela offered to walk him back to her car so he could call for roadside assistance. He accepted, relief flooding his face. As they chatted about simple solutions like topping off the coolant, Angela felt the usual warmth that came from helping someone in need. Just as Angela was reaching into her glove compartment for her phone charger, a patrol car's headlights swept across the road. Officer Daniels and Officer Keller stepped out, uniforms crisp, badges gleaming. They looked at Angela and the stranded driver with cool eyes. "Ma'am, what's going on here?" Daniels asked, voice sharp. Angela introduced herself, explained her volunteer work, and pointed out that she was simply helping a fellow motorist. Keller stood behind Daniels, arms crossed, scanning Angela's confident posture with suspicion. Daniels frowned. "Are you sure you're not involved?" he demanded. Keller added, "You realize it's odd for someone to be out here at this hour, right?" Angela's heart sank at their tone. She knew that suspicion sometimes fell more heavily on people who looked like her, but she stood tall. She showed them her FBI ID badge, hoping it would end the interrogation. Keller glanced at the badge, but said nothing. Daniels flipped through his notebook, eyes lingering on Angela's face as if he expected her to break. The nights in Springfield were usually quiet, with no sound but cicadas and distant traffic. Yet something about the officer's manner made Angela uneasy. She politely asked if she might step back to her vehicle. Keller replied that she needed to stay where she was. As Daniels began asking for her driver's license and registration, Angela's mind raced. She worried about the stranded man, about her own safety, and about how quickly a simple act of kindness could turn into a dangerous situation. In that moment, Angela reminded herself of her training. She stayed calm, spoke clearly, and followed reasonable instructions. She tapped into the resourcefulness that had made her a top cyber investigator. She observed every detail, the way Keller's jacket hung, scuff on Daniels's boot, the slight wobble of the patrol car's tire. Those little things could matter later. When Daniels asked to search her belongings, Angela hesitated. She politely asked if there was probable cause. Daniels muttered and said he had reasonable suspicion. Angela handed over her bag but kept her voice steady. As Keller rifled through her laptop case and Daniels thumbed through her phone, Angela thought of her camp students. She thought of the trust she built with them every week. She thought of how much remained at stake if she could not rely on the rule of law. Even now, she refused to be intimidated. She answered questions, corrected misunderstandings, and repeated her explanations when needed. Though the officers glared, she maintained her composure, making mental notes that she would later document in full. When the officers finally found nothing in her trunk or bag, Angela allowed herself a small breath of relief. Daniels tossed her documents back and said she could go. Keller glared but stayed silent. Angela retrieved her items and thanked them. Though her voice trembled slightly with suppressed tension, she walked back to her car, helped the stranded man to wait there under the bright patrol car lights, and then climbed into her own vehicle. She gave her name and badge number again, letting them know she would follow up with her office. As Angela drove away, headlights fading behind her, she felt both anger and resolve. She knew that tonight's events would not end with a simple apology. There would be a record, there would be questions, and there would be justice to pursue. Still, she took comfort in knowing that she had remained true to her principles. She had helped someone in need, stood up for herself, and gathered vital details about what had happened. In the quiet hum of her engine, she mentally prepared for the next steps she would take with the same care and dedication she brought to every case at the FBI's cyber division. Angela pulled into the FBI parking garage just before dawn. Her mind buzzed with details from the night before. She parked in her usual spot, under a row of fluorescent lights that hummed softly. As she stepped out of her car, she felt the first cold sting of the morning air. She pulled her coat tighter around her and walked briskly to the elevator. Inside, she pressed the button for the 4th floor and steadied herself against the wall. In her office, her laptop and phone lay neatly. On her desk, she sat down, opened a fresh document, and began to type everything she could remember. She wrote about the stranger on the roadside, the way Officer Daniels' eyes had narrowed when she showed her badge, and the moment Keller had thrown her phone into the back seat. She noted the scuff on Keller's boot and the faint smell of oil on Daniels's jacket. She listed the times: 11:47 p.m. when she pulled over, 11:55 p.m. when the patrol car arrived, 12:15 a.m. when she finally left. Angela knew that every second mattered. Once her report was complete, she sent it to Internal Affairs and to her direct supervisor, Special Agent Harper. Then she powered up her workstation. Her team of digital forensic specialists waited for her updates. They needed to know what evidence might still be recoverable. Angela opened her secure chat line and sent a short message. Need to schedule a full forensics review of my devices. Possible tampering. Within minutes, a reply came on it. Bring everything to the lab. Angela packed her bag again. This time she included her phone, her laptop, the charger, and a small recorder she used for interviews. Left her car in the secure garage and walked through the lobby. Outside, the sky was turning pale with sunrise. She paused for a moment, letting the quiet stillness settle her nerves. In the forensics lab, white figures in lab coats moved like dancers around benches covered in hardware and cables. The room smelled of electronics and cleaning solution. Angela placed her laptop on a testing station. A technician named Bryce greeted her with a nod. He was tall, with a calm manner that put people at ease. We'll start with the hard drive. Image, he said. Then we'll run deep recovery protocols. Angela watched as Bryce connected her laptop to a forensic imaging device. She remembered how smooth the case had felt in her hands the night before, how cold those officers' excuses had sounded. She told Bryce about the smashed drives and the deleted logs. Bryce raised an eyebrow. "That's serious," he said. "Tampering like that can destroy key data, but we'll see what we can recover." While the device hummed, Angela's phone sat in an evidence bag under glass. She had insisted on sealing it right after the stop. Now she asked another technician, Mira, to run a metadata analysis. Mira took the phone carefully and plugged it into her console. "We'll try to uncover any residual files," she said. "Even deleted items leave traces." Angela moved to a corner of the room, near a window that looked out on the city. She took a deep breath. Her mind drifted to the driver she had helped. He had seemed so grateful, but who knew if he had stuck around? Angela had wanted to check on him afterward, but the officers had rushed her away. She felt a flicker of guilt that she could not know his fate. She made a mental note to follow up through dispatch records once she had time. Her phone buzzed with a text from Special Agent Harper. "EA has assigned Agent Chen to your case. We'll join you in the lab at 11. Angela typed back, "Thank you. I'll be here." She turned back to the workstations. On a side table lay the shattered pieces of the hard drives the officers had broken. Angela had insisted they become evidence rather than be tossed. Each metal disc and circuit board fragment now sat under a clear dome. It looked like pieces of a puzzle waiting to be put back together. At 11:05, Agent Chen walked into the lab. He was new to the cyber division, but had a reputation for thoroughness. He wore a navy suit and carried a folder. He greeted Angela with a firm handshake. "I've read your report," he said. "We need to move quickly. The local precinct may try to cover this up." Angela showed him the imaging progress on her laptop. "Bryce is getting a full copy now," she said. "Mira's running data carving on my phone. I also saved notes on my recorder during the stop, but I'm not sure how much they'll admit." Chen nodded. "Good. Let's prioritize any deleted files that relate to your case. We'll compare timestamps to your notes." He opened his folder and took out a printout of her report. "I want to interview those officers once we have the digital timeline." Angela felt a surge of relief. Having Chen on her side meant oversight beyond her own bureau chain of command. Together, they moved to a whiteboard near the door. Chen wrote evidence nodes at the top and drew lines connecting laptop, phone, and recorder. Under each, he wrote hard drive image, metadata recovery, and audio transcript. They plotted the steps for the next 24 hours. Meanwhile, Bryce called Angela over. "We recovered part of your drive," he said quietly. "There's a folder of system logs dated last night. Also, encrypted files that match your known project directories." Angela appeared at the screen. "System logs?" she asked. "Who could have left logs if they were trying to delete everything?" Bryce pointed to a folder labeled Session Logs. "It looks like they deleted most files, but these auto-generated logs slipped through. We can analyze them." Angela's heart sped up. These logs would show exactly when the tampering happened. She thanked Bryce and motioned for Chen to join her. "This is good," she said. "Pins the timeline to the moment the drives were smashed." Chen studied the screen. "We'll save copies, timestamp them, and include them in our request for a search warrant." Later, Mira approached with a tablet. "I've pulled fragments from the phone's storage," she said. "Deleted messages, partial call records, and a few photos." Angela's brow furrowed. "Photos? Did the officers take pictures of you?" Mira nodded. "One or two, but they're blurry. You might be able to enhance them," Angela realized. They could show the officers in action, putting the phone in the back seat. She asked Mira to start color correction and edge enhancement. While they worked, Chen excused himself to draft an affidavit. Angela returned to her desk, reviewed the recorder file, and took notes on key timestamps. She saved a backup to her secure cloud. She glanced at the shattered drive pieces and thought about how fragile evidence could be in the wrong hands. She whispered to herself, "Digital footprints never lie." By my afternoon, Chen was back, carried 2 sealed envelopes, search and seizure warrants, he announced. One for the precinct's digital servers, one for the officer's locker. Angela felt a mix of excitement and anxiety. Wow. Next step would demand careful diplomacy. They needed to work with the local U.S. Attorney's Office to execute the warrants. The last thing she wanted was a leak that tipped off Daniels and Keller. They gathered in a small conference room. Chen reviewed the warrant language, citing the logs, phone fragments, and her own testimony. He emphasized the race-neutral language, focusing on obstruction and evidence tampering. Angela added a note about civil rights violations. Once signed, the warrants went out immediately to the U.S. Marshals Service. As the sun began to set, Angela packed up her things. The lab was quiet now. Technicians had gone home or shifted shifts. She turned off the monitors and slipped her laptop into its case. Chen joined her by the exit. "You did well today," he said. "Tomorrow, we'll visit the precinct." Angela nodded. "Thank you," she replied. "I couldn't have done this alone." Back in the parking garage, Angela climbed into her car and drove home under the glow of streetlights. She thought of the coding camp students who believed in her. She thought of how a simple act of kindness had sparked a fight for justice. She tapped the steering wheel gently and said, "We're going to win this." The city lights blurred past as she headed toward home, ready for whatever came next. Angela woke before her alarm, her mind still buzzing from the previous day's successes. She brewed a strong cup of coffee and reviewed her notes once more. Every detail mattered now. By sunrise, she was on the highway toward the local precinct, flanked by Agent Chen and 2 U.S. Marshals. The morning air was crisp, and the sky blushed with pink as dawn broke. Angela felt a mixture of excitement and tension. Today they would knock on those doors and demand answers. They arrived at the station just as officers began their early shift. The brick building looked ordinary, almost benign, but Angela knew what lay inside: digital servers and locked cabinets, filled with evidence that Daniels and Keller might have hidden or destroyed. Warrant, signed by a federal judge, and they moved forward as a team. Angela clutched her recorder in her pocket, ready to capture anything she might need later. Inside the lobby, desks were cluttered with paperwork and coffee cups. A uniformed officer looked up, surprised to see the marshals. "May I help you?" she asked. Chen showed his badge and the warrant. "FBI and U.S. Marshals, we're here to execute a search of your digital systems and Officer Daniels' locker. Please step aside." The officer nodded, her expression calm but curious. She led them down a hallway lined with framed commendations and faded photographs of retired chiefs. Angela paused in front of the server room door. She remembered how Daniels had bragged once about keeping his personal thumb drive stashed in a small lockbox near his desk. Now it would open under this warrant. She exchanged a glance with Chen, who nodded. The marshals drew their keys and unlocked the heavy door. Inside, racks of blinking lights hummed like a live heartbeat. Angela stepped forward, careful not to touch anything until the tech team arrived. A forensic technician soon joined them, white gloves on, ready to image the servers. He set up a portable write blocker and began making exact copies of the data. Angela watched the progress bar inch forward, feeling relief with each % gained. She knew that once they had a mirror image, they could search freely without fear of altering the originals. Her heart thumped in her chest, hopeful that they would find traces of Daniels and Keller's tampering next. They headed to the locker room. Chen led the way, warrant in hand. They passed rows of lockers painted in dull gray. One locker stood out, Officer Daniels' name printed on a small metal plate. Chen unlocked it. Inside lay neatly folded uniforms, a pair of boots, and a small lockbox secured with a combination lock. Angela stepped closer, eyes sharp. The marshals cracked the combination and opened the box. Inside were 2 smashed hard drives and a battered flash drive, exactly what she had said the officers threw away. Angela carefully placed the pieces into evidence bags. Each fragment told a story: the way the metal had been bent, the jagged edges where someone had swung a hammer. She recorded everything on her phone, taking photos for reference. Chen reminded her to note the chain of custody. Angela nodded and stamped each bag with the date and time. She felt a small surge of satisfaction that the drives were safe at last. Back in the hallway, Keller appeared, dressed in his uniform. His face went pale when he saw the marshals. "What's going on?" he demanded, showed him the warrant, and suggested he accompany them for his own good. Keller hesitated, eyes darting toward the locker. I need to call my attorney," he stammered. A marshal placed a gentle hand on his arm. "You can do that after we complete the search," the marshal said. Keller backed down and followed them silently. With Keller present, they proceeded to the evidence storage room. This was where the precinct kept crime scene photographs, witness statements, and confiscated items. Angela's stomach tightened. If Daniels and Keller had stashed any additional proof, like the photos they had snapped of her, Angela needed to see them, Chen unlocked the door with another warrant. Inside, shelves groaned under stacks of boxes and folders. Angela and a female agent began pulling out boxes labeled traffic stops, January, traffic stops, February, and so on. They worked quickly, searching for anything tagged with the previous night's date. Finally, they found a small, unlabeled box. Inside lay a few printed snapshots, photos of Angela standing beside her car, her phone in the back seat. "Officer." Keller's arm in mid-motion as he shoved the device. Images were grainy, but clear enough. Angela stared at them, her jaw clenched. Here was the proof she needed. She slipped the photos into a protective sleeve and added them to the marshals. "Evidence bag." Keller's shoulders sagged. He looked away, shame flickering across his face. Angela felt a pang of pity mixed with resolve. He had chosen wrong when he destroyed her evidence. Now the truth would come out. As the search wrapped up, Chen gathered everyone in the records room. He held the server copies, the smashed drives, and the photographs. "We have what we need," he said firmly. "Thank you, everyone. Let's secure these items and move on to interviews." Your marshals guided Daniels and Keller to a small interview room. Angela followed, recorder and notebook ready. Inside, Daniels sat at the table, his boots barely touching the floor. Keller leaned against the wall, arms crossed. Chen sat opposite Daniels. "Officer Daniels," he began, "I want to give you a chance to tell your side." "Why did you smash these drives?" Daniels swallowed hard. "I panicked," he admitted. "I didn't mean to break the law. I thought I could get away with it." Chen's eyes narrowed. "You knew her badge, Shizan, FBI agent. Why destroy evidence instead of calling your supervisor?" Daniels looked at Keller, then back at Chen. "I thought she was lying. I thought she was using her badge to bully us." Keller shifted. "We've had cases where people claimed federal ties as a trick," he added. "I didn't know she was real." Angela stood beside the door, listening quietly. She pressed record and took mental notes. Chen leaned forward. "You assumed? Based on her appearance and the time of night, you labeled her suspicious because she was a black woman?" Keller's face reddened. I'm sorry, I see now how wrong that was." Chen nodded. "You'll have a chance to explain this. 2 Internal Affairs. In the meantime, do not discuss this incident with anyone." He stood and motioned to a marshal. "Take them back to their desks." Angela exhaled, tension leaving her shoulders. She closed the recorder. The truth was out. The officers had admitted to their bias, their panic, and their unlawful acts. She felt relief but knew the work wasn't over. Next, she would help prepare the Internal Affairs report and support any civil rights investigation. After the interviews, Chen escorted Angela back to the forensics van parked outside. The van's doors opened with a soft hiss, revealing built-in workstations where they could review the copied server data. Inside, Angela and Chen sat side by side, screens glowing. Angela loaded the server image and began searching for any logs modified or deleted around the time of her stop. Chen watched, ready to note anything unusual. The hours passed quickly as they combed through the data. They found server event logs, showing that someone had attempted to delete traffic stop records at precisely 11:56 p.m. the previous night. The deletion originated from the precinct's main terminal, likely where Keller had logged in. They bookmarked those entries and exported them to a secure folder. Next, Angela searched the recovered phone fragments for call records. She found a deleted entry, a call from Keller's personal phone to Daniels. Timestamped at 11:54 p.m. That call could show coordination. Angela documented everything carefully. She knew that every piece of recovered data strengthened the case against the officers. By late afternoon, they had a solid digital timeline. Angela's stop at 11:47, the call at 11:54, the attempted deletion at 11:56, the smashing of drives at 11:58, and her departure at 12:15. With this timeline, no one could deny what had happened. Exhausted but triumphant, Angela leaned back in her chair. Chen smiled. "Dulled great work," he said. "We have more than enough to support charges for tampering, obstruction, and civil rights violations." Angela nodded, a sense of purpose warming her fatigue. She closed the laptop and packed her recorder, ready to return to FBI headquarters. As they drove away, she looked back at the station, knowing justice would follow. The sun was low in the sky now, gilding the clouds with gold. Angela felt hope that her community would learn from this, that the coding camp kids would see the power of courage, and that bias, once exposed, could no longer hide in the shadows. Angela stepped off the elevator on the 10th floor of FBI headquarters, her heart steady, but her mind racing. She carried a folder thick with evidence server images, smashed drive fragments, metadata logs, and those telling photographs. Special. Agent Harper met her at the door, his face serious. "Show me what you've got," he said. Angela led him into the briefing room, where a long table awaited. She laid out each piece carefully, aligning them in chronological order. Harper studied the photographs first. Blurry snapshots of Angela's phone lying in the back seat, and of Officer Keller's hand mid-motion. He nodded. "These are clear enough to establish tampering," he said. Next, Angela passed over the server event logs. Harper frowned as he read the timestamp showing the deletion. "Attempts at 11:56 p.m. Someone with access tried to erase the record," he noted. Then came the call records. A deleted entry from Keller's personal line to Daniels as Harper tapped the page. "Coordination," he said quietly. Finally, Angela handed over the forensic imaging report. The recovered system logs contained notes of an attempted hard drive wipe followed by manual deletion commands. "This," she said, "matches the guards at the precinct." Harper closed the folder with a soft snap. "You've done excellent work, Angela," he said. "This evidence is more than enough to open a full federal investigation. I'll notify the U.S. Attorney's Office and Internal Affairs." Angela felt a swell of relief mixed with purpose. She had not only protected her own rights, but had uncovered a pattern of wrongdoing that might have gone unnoticed. Later that morning, Angela joined Agent Chen and a prosecutor from the U.S. Attorney's Office, a woman named Jacobs. They met in the small conference room adjacent to the grand auditorium. Jacobs was calm, precise, and spoke with the authority of her office. She reviewed the evidence packet and nodded in approval. "We will charge Daniels and Keller with obstruction of justice, evidence tampering, and civil rights violations," she said. "This will go before a grand jury next week." Angela felt a knot in her stomach at the thought of public testimony, but braced herself. Justice, she reminded herself, often required courage under pressure. Chen turned to Jacobs with a question. "Do we also pursue administrative action with the local police department?" Jacobs flicked a glance at Angela. "Yes," she replied. "The department can't escape scrutiny. Their officers attacked a federal agent performing a public service. We'll coordinate with Justice Department attorneys to recommend policy reforms and bias training." Angela nodded in agreement. She had seen firsthand how implicit prejudice could warp judgment, even when evidence lay right before one's eyes. If the precinct learned from this, maybe future officers would think twice before letting bias guide their actions. That afternoon, Angela prepared for her own deposition. She sat in a quiet office with a recording device on the table. Across from her sat a young paralegal, clipboard in hand. Angela reviewed her mental timeline. The stranded driver. The arrival of the patrol car, the badge display, the search, the arrest, the destruction of evidence. She spoke clearly and calmly, her voice steady as she recounted each moment. When asked about her evidence collection, she explained the secure chain of custody, how she had documented every detail, and how the lab team had recovered critical logs. The paralegal nodded approvingly at each thorough answer. After the deposition, Angela returned to her desk, where a bouquet of flowers awaited gifts from her coding camp students. A note read, "Thank you for being our hero." Angela smiled as she set the flowers beside her monitor. She took a picture and sent it to Special Agent Harper with a message, "Reminders of why we do this work." Harper replied with a thumbs-up emoji and "Keep going." Over the next few days, news of the case began to leak. Local reporters filed Freedom of Information Act requests. Citizens talked in whispered conversations on social media. Springfield's mayor called for a public statement. Angela and her team crafted a careful press release. The FBI would not tolerate evidence tampering or civil rights violations, and fair law enforcement served all citizens equally. The mayor read the release in a downtown press conference, flanked by city council members. Angela's name was not mentioned, but her work shone through in every fact. She watched the live stream on her phone, pride swelling as she saw the city commit to an independent review of police conduct. Meanwhile, in internal affairs offices at the precinct, Daniels and Keller faced suspension. Their desks were cleared, and fellow officers avoided their gaze in the locker room. They sat through interviews with the precinct's chief of police and a representative from the city's Civil Rights Commission. Both men offered reluctant apologies and excuses stress, misunderstanding, pressure to solve crimes quickly, but none of it erased the clear timeline that Angela and her team had established. The chief's office announced that both officers would be terminated if their actions were confirmed. The precinct also pledged to introduce regular bias awareness workshops for all personnel. Angela received the news while grading student projects at the coding camp's weekend session. She wore jeans and a branded camp t-shirt as she sat at a long table with 12 excited teenagers. Their screens displayed colorful web pages and simple games. One student raised her hand. She said, "Why did you tell us?" "About what happened to you?" Angela paused, heart warmed by the question. She looked around at the eager faces. "Because," she began, "we need to stand up for what is right. Sometimes people make unfair assumptions, but if we work together, we can change things." The students nodded, eyes wide. She walked them through a mini lesson on digital evidence, how lines of code, logs and timestamps could help prove the truth. They listened, fascinated. That evening, Angela sat on her porch with Shadow curled in her lap. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of purple and gold. She thought about the driver she had helped on that country road. She still did not know his name or whether he had made it safely home. But she felt confident that justice for her case would send a message. Help, kindness, and truth would always prevail over prejudice and corruption. As night fell, she reflected on how far she had come from that roadside interaction to the halls of justice. She knew the grand jury would hear the evidence soon, and the outcome would shape the community's faith in its protectors. But Angela also knew that her role went beyond this single case. She would continue teaching, investigating, and mentoring, using every skill she had to ensure that technology served justice, not bias. With Shadow purring softly, she whispered to the night air, "Tomorrow, we keep moving forward." And with that promise, she stood and went inside, ready for whatever came next. Asked ChatGPT. Angela woke early the next morning, sunlight filtering through white curtains. Today was the day of the grand jury hearing. She dressed in a simple blouse and slacks, the same clothes she had worn on the night of the traffic stop, now washed and pressed. Her heart thrummed with nerves and resolve. She had prepared every detail, every document, every piece of evidence. She wanted the truth to shine. At headquarters, she met Special Agent Harper in the lobby. He offered a steadying smile. "You're ready," he said. Angela nodded and gripped her folder tighter. Together, they rode the elevator to the secure witness room. It was quiet inside, with gray walls and a single table. A court reporter sat at one end, a recorder in front of her. On the table lay the same photographs, logs, and notes Angela had gathered. When it was time, a marshal ushered Angela into the jury room. The grand jurors sat in semicircles, faces attentive but expressionless. The district attorney introduced her as a federal cyber investigator who had suffered evidence tampering and civil rights violations. Angela took the stand and looked at the jurors one by one. She began calmly, describing how she had stopped to help a stranded driver, how 2 officers had treated her with suspicion, how they had destroyed her devices. She spoke of the flashing lights, the tight grip on her arm, the smash of hard drives. She held a clear photograph of one crushed disk and the time-stamped log showing the deletion attempt. Her voice stayed steady as she explained how each piece fit together. She wanted the jurors to see the human cost of bias and the power of digital evidence. When she finished, the room was silent. The district attorney asked no further questions. The jurors whispered among themselves and filed out. Angela returned to the witness room. Harper waited by the door. He nodded. I think they saw your point. Angela exhaled, relief and fatigue mingling in her chest. She handed over her notes to the court reporter, collected her things, and followed Harper back to the lobby. The marshal escorted her downstairs. Outside, spring air felt cool and fresh. She took a deep breath and looked at the tall federal building behind her. Back at headquarters, Angela found a message from Agent Chen. They voted to indict. Congratulations. She almost dropped her coffee. A wave of joy and vindication washed over her. She typed back, "Thank you. This means justice for everyone." Then she shared the news with Special Agent Harper, who clasped his hands and smiled broadly. Other agents gathered around, clapping her on the back. Angela felt honored but also aware of the gravity. 2 officers would face trial for abusing their power. That afternoon, Angela headed to a ceremony at the community center. The coding camp students had asked her to speak about what she had learned. She arrived to find the room decorated with colorful streamers and balloons. Parents and neighbors filled folding chairs. A small stage held a podium and a framed certificate from the FBI. The students greeted her with excited chatter and shy waves. Angela stepped up to the podium, certificate in her hand. She began by thanking everyone for their support. Then, she told the campers how courage and preparation had guided her through a dark moment. She spoke in simple words so the youngest child in the back could follow. She explained how logs, photos, and recordings could tell the truth when people tried to hide it. The students listened, eyes shining. After her speech, the director of the center invited her to unveil a new scholarship fund in her name. A large check was displayed on an easel. It read, Angela Martinez Cyber Confidence Scholarship. The fund would help underrepresented students attend advanced coding workshops. 2 campers cut the ribbon, and the audience cheered. Angela's heart swelled as she realized how her fight for justice would inspire new minds. Later, Angela walked through the community center halls. She stopped to look at pictures of past coding events, smiling faces, colorful laptops, lines of code on, projector screens. She remembered how she felt when she first learned to write her own programs. She thought of the grand jury rooms, the forensics lab, the interview room where Daniels and Keller confessed. She realized that each step had brought her here, where she could give back. That evening, Angela returned home, Shadow darting out to meet her at the door. She scooped up her cat and settled onto the couch. News alerts on her phone reported the indictment and the scholarship fund. Local residents praised her bravery on social media. Some wrote that they had lost faith in law enforcement, but now trusted that change was possible. Angela felt gratitude for her community, but also a weight of responsibility. She vowed to keep watching and fighting for fairness. Over the next week, she trained attorneys on digital evidence handling. She led workshops at the FBI for agents who worked on cases involving technology. She emphasized clear documentation, chain of custody, and respect for civil rights. Colleagues said her workshop was the best they had seen. Angela felt proud that her experience would shape future investigations. One afternoon, Angela received a letter. It was from the stranded driver she had helped that night. His name was Mr. Carter. He wrote that her kindness had saved him from a long wait, and that he had made his early surgery appointment because of her help. He thanked her for caring about strangers. Angela read the letter again and again. It reminded her that every small act of kindness mattered, even amid larger battles for justice. By the time the trial date for Daniels and Keller arrived, Angela had prepared her testimony twice more. On the day of trial, she sat in a courtroom, packed with reporters, lawyers, and neighbors. She gave her testimony clearly, describing how bias can blind good people and how evidence, digital or otherwise, can reveal the truth. The jury deliberated for 2 days, and they returned a verdict, guilty on all counts. The courtroom erupted in quiet applause. Angela closed her eyes and let the moment sink in. In the weeks that followed, the mayor announced new police policies: mandatory bias training, body camera upgrades, and an external civilian review board. Angela attended the signing ceremony, where she spoke briefly about accountability and trust. She reminded everyone that justice was not a one-time event, but a constant commitment. That night, Angela walked home under a clear sky filled with stars. She paused on her porch and looked up. She thought of the path that brought her here, her childhood in Springfield, her days at the academy, late nights in the lab, and every choice to stand up for what